got on, and
How do I make a shareable
I asked
link?
him some
You guys
tough
told me
questions.
last time, and I don't remember.
You go to the
you
dock,
go
and then you
to
share.
share.
Access restricted. People can open with the link.
Yeah,
Share.
click on it.
Copy link.
Anyone with the link.
Open
Copy
up
link.
Discord. And paste.
That's right.
That did not work. Try again.
No, it did. It looks the same as Cameron's.
No. Brandon, try clicking on that link.
He's so defensive. He just says,
What?
What?
Well, it looks the exact same as Cameron's in the chat.
Go back to share and export. And you saw restricted. Does it say restricted?
Yeah.
Click
Anyone
restricted.
with link.
Anyone with link. Make sure it saves like that.
Delete message. Yes.
There we go. We got it.
No, I deleted it. Hold up.
It worked. You're not going to be able to fix it.
Delete message.
You're not going to be able to fix it.
No, it
Dumbass.
fix. Look, Brant, I'm in the same boat. It does not get
This
fixed.
is so sad.
It is what it is.
Okay, whatever.
Has perfect display.
I appear to be the only one who knows how to operate a fucking computer.
Cody, are you on Discord on PC?
Nope, I'm on my phone.
I'm on PC.
Well, then what do you mean, Cody, that you know how to operate a computer? That doesn't work then.
My phone is a computer.
Shut up, Cameron. Cody, are you going to read this really epic story or what?
It's 3 pages. He did last month's prompt.
Yeah.
That was 2 weeks ago, silly.
Yeah.
That was... Wait, Cody's is only 3 pages?
Mine is not long. Mine is not long by any capacity.
Cameron, how long is yours?
6.
The limit was 5.
Was it? I thought it was 7.
No.
Oh, no.
Cameron.
Let's see, what page can I delete?
How did you even do that?
Can delete this. Damn it.
No,
don't delete a whole
anything.
page. Just leave the story.
Damn, that's going to count against me. Alright.
Okay.
It
All
is.
right, I'm ready to begin.
Oh, sorry. I took one of Cody's pages. He let me borrow.
That's not how this works.
Alright, I failed.
Okay, our prompt was wishes. That's it. One word, wishes. And yeah, I'm gonna have to explain my story after it. I can't explain it before the story, or else it ruins the story. So we're just gonna begin. Knock, knock. I jump slightly and look over to the door, then to my phone. 8:34 p.m. I smile and walk to the door, opening it to Sarah's smiling face. Hey, you ready to go? She asked me. Sarah is wearing a typical t-shirt, pair of jeans, sneakers. Guess that's what happens when a girl with 3 brothers grows up with them. She never dressed like a cutesy girl, but I wasn't going to complain about it. Yeah, let's go. We got just enough time to get there if we just walk. I grab her hand and begin walking down the street, taking a slightly offbeat path, and she notices. Hey, shouldn't we have turned left there? Why are we going straight? I turn to her and point down the road off in the distance. A pair of blaring lights, blue and red, flash, lighting up the nearby buildings and sky. Looks like an accident or something over there. Rather not walk by that, so I figure we just go a bit further and turn later. She looks down the road at the blaring lights and nods, her eyes reflecting the lights. Yeah, maybe not the best idea to be going that way, huh? Okay, come on, hurry up. We're gonna be late. I chuckle as she takes off and goes into a light jog to keep up with her. We'd be a bit early at this rate, but that's okay, as long as we aren't late. As we jog, I speed up slightly as we near a corner. Crosswalk signaling it was our turn to cross, and grab her arm, pulling her towards me just before she tries to go, and a car speeds past the red light. She screeches slightly, then screams at the now long gone car, spewing curses at the faceless driver. Bitch! Thanks. You may have just saved me. How did I not notice that asshole? I shrug, walking across with her now, her demeanor now calm after letting out that fit of anger and fear she had just felt. As we reach the other side, we sidestep a slightly larger puddle and keep moving. I heard the tires. I guess you were too busy running to notice? Well, I'm not sure, but you should be more careful. I lectured her slightly, but it was the driver's fault, so I don't say anything more. As we reach the theater, I look at the time. I was right, we're early. 8:54. It's 6 extra minutes. Perfect amount of time to grab a drink and get seated, I suppose. It's gonna start soon. Come on. I want to get a drink and get seated before it starts. You never know if the trailers will have a gem in them. I nod and walk inside, acquiring water for myself and a lemonade for her. She's bound to like the drink choice, since she's never been a fan of popcorn, so I instead get a candy bar. We meet her at the ticket booth after getting our tickets checked. We walk in and find our theater room and seats. And I settle in for the newest hit movie, although that's not what I'm interested in, honestly. I hear this movie is actually supposed to be quite heart-wrenching. Guess I'll finally get to see if it's true, I mention. She looks at me and scoffs. I smile at the response. I know what I'm talking about. How could you possibly have heard that? This is opening day and it's only played like twice before this showing. That's 2 showings for me to hear things. Put the candy bar in front of her and she grabs it. Figured you'd like a little something sweet. Or call you like those chocolates? She smiles and nods. I'm glad you remembered your girlfriend's favorite chocolate bar, and you were nice enough to get me one. Thank you. I smile and notice the lights dimming, so I point to the screen and she quiets down as the trailers and eventually the movie finally starts. The movie, for all intents and purposes, is okay. Nothing I hadn't seen before. But Sarah enjoys it, so I'm happy with that. A particularly tear-jerking scene provides me a good chance to wrap an arm around her shoulder. She leans against my own shoulder in response. My heart flutters slightly. We stay like this for a few minutes as the movie reaches its end. I don't even need to check the time. 10:47. 19 minutes remaining. Say, why don't we go for a stroll? I propose to her. She looks at me as if I've gone mad, but a curiosity seems to overtake her. A stroll? To where? It's another one of your plots? She accuses me. It's true that under any other circumstances, I likely would be trying to get something out of this. Not necessarily a plot. You'll see. Come on, follow me. Grab her hand and guide her out of the theater, taking the left exit. Just as we walk out, someone falls and spills something on someone walking out the right exit. But we move on quickly enough. I guide her to an area just behind the theater, in a small, undeveloped area. About 10 minutes away is a walk. A small hill gives sight to the sky above, and I look up. It'd be soon. Say, I just wanted to say, it's been fun. But why drag me out to a hill where there isn't anything around? She says with a smile, and I look at her, an equally large smile on my face. It's something I've always liked. I used to come here to relax as a child. More importantly, is there anything I could have done to make tonight better? Anything at all? I respond, almost desperate to know how to improve the night. 3 minutes. I mean, you could always kiss me, you know? Say you love me, perhaps we could go get dessert somewhere. Grab some ice cream, listen to music, go home. She says, I agree. Oh, fantastic idea. It's more valuable to me to know all of this. I see. Thank you. By the way, I do love you immensely. Don't worry. I'll make sure tonight is the best night it can be. I take her hand and I bring my lips to hers. As I pull back, I look up, a single streak of light crossing the sky. Oh, it's right on time. I wish I could live through tonight again. I say with a smile. A moment passes. A moment of silence. Knock, knock. I jump slightly and look over to the door. Then on my phone. 8:34 p.m. She's right on time. I smile and go to open my door. That is the end of that story. So, what you just witnessed is specifically the 4th time he's lived through the night. He knew that was going to happen.
Yes.
He knew it. He knew that was going to happen. That was his perfect run, quote unquote. Now he's just making sure it was perfect. Question is he actually stuck in a loop, or is he capable of getting out? He'll never fucking know.
Cameron?
Yeah, I liked it. So your interpretation of Wish was how did he
Shooting
do?
star.
He just like a good.
Wish upon a shooting star. That's
okay.
that's the theme.
Sorry, my fault.
I didn't want to go with genies. Genies are too fucking obvious.
No, yeah, no, you're fine. You're fine. I wasn't saying anything. I was just trying to figure it out. Okay. Yeah,
Wish
I mean,
upon a shooting star.
yeah, I like it. It's definitely like a groundhog story. I'm trying to.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
I guess you could look back at it and read it back through and kind of see that he actually
I
does
could have
know.
told any I could have told any one of the 4 versions before this.
Right.
In the first one, I could tell you all about them because I planned all of them in my head and then I made references to each one and how a fuck up occurred in each world.
I see.
In the first one, they went down the wrong road. They ran into the police barricade, and something bad would have happened. More likely than not, they would have gotten involved in some sort of like chase.
Right.
Number
Um,
2 was her getting hit by the car.
yeah, she could have
Yeah.
gotten hit by the
Yeah,
car.
yeah.
If they had gotten down the wrong exit at the theater, she would have had a drink spilled all over her. It would have ruined her clothes.
Mm-hmm.
Would have ruined the atmosphere and the mood.
Yeah, it's good whenever you reread it again. It's good the first time too, but the ending kind of nods to go back and see it all.
See, why
Yeah,
does this guy seem almost omniscient?
because like during it, you're like, oh, okay, this is just his perfect day, but then you get to the end and you can be like, oh, okay, it's because he made it.
He's making
Yeah,
it his perfect
which
day.
it's
That was
good.
my
It's a cute little.
that was my goal to try and portray.
Mhm.
The issue is that I didn't know how to portray it.
No, I think it's a cute little thing. I think maybe if you would have had those other stories, but I don't know how you would do that. I think it's good as a short little thing.
I think I think it's a super digestible piece. Like I don't think it's nothing that needs to be critiqued. I think it's something that you clearly made with a storyline added. I don't think there's anything I would add. I would say that the second that he put, I'll be honest, until he said, "I'm glad you remember," or until she said, "I'm glad you remembered your girlfriend's favorite chocolate," I thought this almost was like a first date sort of thing. Um, that was my bad.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I figured out what the twist was whenever he says, "I recall you like those chocolates." After you had read that, hearing you read that, I instantly said like, "Oh, okay, so this has to be some type sort of time thing." And I'll be honest, the only thing that I was misled on is at first I thought the time shenanigans were more so than just a wish because whenever you bring up the police I thought it had something to do with them. Um, so more of instead of just a temporal loop, it was like a space time itself was warped on top of itself. Um, which again isn't a bad thing. Like you did perfectly fine with the way that you did it. I think I think the easiest way I can put it is it's easily digestible. There's there's nothing I can really critique or say to add or change. I don't think you can take anything out because all of it is, I mean, all of it works for building the mood, and I don't think there's anything that you have to add either. Like I think it's just a solid piece from start to finish.
I do have something I would probably add, if anything, is kind of like instead of just making it seem like the perfect scenarios happening because it's good there, but like also have some stuff that isn't necessarily like good or bad, but that kind of references that he is in a loop and he knows it, like earlier on or something. Just something that we as reader, it doesn't have to be a direct giveaway, just like something where it's like, oh, okay, so we see this character has been upfront with what is happening, even though we didn't understand the message he sent it through or whatever he did to do it. So like a good way to do is it's like maybe he woke up and like wrote a specific number down in a notebook that had nothing else in it. And that way it's just like, okay, he's keeping track of how many days in a row he's repeated or something, you know?
See, I I thought about what I thought about showing and what I thought about telling was I thought about telling the timeline where he makes one minor mistake. I
Mm-hmm.
was writing the chocolate bar scene as Brandon just said, And I thought about making it that he picks the wrong kind of like candy bar and he gets the wrong kind of candy. And she lightly comments that, no, these are okay, but they had blank up at the register, right? Those are my favorites. And I debated having that involved, so at the very end, he could say, "Don't worry, I'll remember these next time," and then he wishes. I
Hmm.
debated that,
Yeah. That.
but ultimately, I didn't do that.
Yeah. And I still think it's a fine short story on its own. I'm just, you know, if you could have added that something like that in there to kind of like nod and let the reader know
Yeah,
uh,
I see
that
what
the
you mean.
character actively is aware of the situation he's in. But
I
other than that, I
think,
like it.
yeah, like it's again, I think it's a great digestible piece. My only qualm with it, which isn't even a real critique, is I think it's a little on the safe side for you as a writer, Cody.
Yes.
I don't think this took you 2 weeks to write. And
No,
I
it
don't
did
mean that in a
not.
negative I don't mean that in a negative way,
Because you clearly
but in
thought about
terms
it
of
with other stories and stuff.
you put thought into it for sure. And I can tell because again it's a very condensed piece. But I will say that in terms of you and what you're capable of a writer, that is the only thing that brings this down. Is that it's not bad. It's very, very like it's good. I just know that you can take more risks with your writing. Even if it means that you fall flat, you can take more risks.
Yes. And do you want to hear the reason this isn't a risky piece?
Uh,
Because I actually do. I actually do have a reason. When I proposed the idea of wishes, I told this to Cameron earlier. When I proposed that prompt, I had a very solid idea for what I wanted to write. And then I waited like 2 days because I had to work. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna get to it, I'm gonna write it. And I sat down and I looked at a blank Google Doc and I stopped and I was like, fuck, I don't remember what the idea was. And I spent a good
uh,
3 days trying to remember what it was.
Awful. Yeah, that's the worst.
that's painful. That's the
That's why
worst.
I just have defaulted to writing them immediately, even if it's not like fully detailed. Just
Yeah,
get the idea there
I
and
just
then remember the rest.
I just fucking like I spent a good like 5 or 6 days agonizing over like fuck what was it, and then eventually I just came up with a new idea, which was this, and I just wrote that.
yeah.
Oh man, that is tough.
Like
Yeah.
again, don't let us discredit you. Like
No.
it's definitely a good piece.
Hmm.
It's definitely unique. I don't think any of us will write something like this again because it's you did such a good job at trying to capture what you were trying to. But yeah, again, I can't critique you on saying be more adventurous with your writing, taking more
I've
risks when
Yeah,
you were fully aware
Yeah,
of
no,
it.
I absolutely would have. That's the thing, right?
it is
I
Yeah,
feel like
yeah,
my original idea
fixed.
was going to be something good because I loved the idea of a Groundhog Day scenario, but the person A is aware of it, B can control it, and C can choose to exit when they please.
Yeah.
yeah,
And they are actively
it's cool.
choosing to continue to repeat it. What is the reason for that? Why would they want to repeat it?
Yeah, and that's a good reason is he's trying to perfect the perfect day. I agree.
He's
Yeah.
trying to perfect his night.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it's good because it's I feel like it's very when we compare to the
I
Lost episode 0, this is a very tonally very different for you, Tomasti. Very different from the more serious pieces you take normally. So I
and
think that's good on for you for branching out and trying to capture different moods.
Okay,
and
thank you.
what rating do you think you give yourself for this story?
I'm not gonna lie. I think the idea was solid. I
Hmm.
think my overall execution was less solid,
Okay.
based solely on the idea that uh, I have a habit to condense my stories, even when they don't really need to be condensed. This was 2 pages. It was just over 1,100 words, and I very easily could have made this 4 pages in like 2,000 words,
Hmm.
and I kept condensing it further. and I need to get to the point of not condensing my story so thoroughly because that
Yeah.
felt very fast. So I'm personally giving myself a 7, which is I could have A, pushed myself harder, and B, I could have condensed it less. But aside from that, I liked the idea.
Okay.
Cameron, what are you thinking?
I'll match this 7, and I'll say it like this. I think, yeah, it's a decent story on its own. I definitely, the same thing as what Brandon will probably touch up on again, but I think there's things you could have done to let us know, and I think there's like you could have risen the stakes more. Say maybe that's the night she was going to break up with him and leave him, and he was trying to do the perfect date so she doesn't leave him or something. I know you had a plan and you were running out of time. So for the story you managed to provide, I mean, it's still a story and it's still digestible and understandable, and you can appreciate it for what it is. So 7.
Yeah, I think Cody, that was a very honest score to give yourself, and I agree with Cameron and you as well. I think 7 is a good, healthy spot to sit this. Like I think it's very good, and I think for most people out there, if they were to write this, I would say it's really good. I would give people an 8, 8.5 for most other writers out there, or people trying to write. But you're not someone who's trying to write. You are someone that I would call an experienced writer, right? And so I want more from you, and I know the circumstances made the piece what it is, and it happens. I'll get into how what happened with my story too later, but I definitely feel you there, and I
What do you
understand.
mean?
And so long as you're self-aware, huh?
What happened with your story?
Well, I'll go into it whenever
We'll
it's
get
my
into
turn.
that.
What the?
We'll get
You
to
guys
that.
both had stuff happen?
Well, more or
Okay, you
less,
know what? I had stuff happen
but
too, I guess.
but what I'm saying is I'm gonna give it a 7. Don't take that as discouraging in the story in any way. It'll definitely make like the collection, the book for sure. Um, but yeah, just doing what you can. Sometimes we'll just have those weeks. But so long as even if you didn't learn anything as a writer, you did learn to think on your toes and still make a product, and that's something to be proud of.
And you
So,
can always come back to this on your own time and better the
oh
story if
yeah,
you want to. I mean,
I had one idea that I was heavily debating doing all the way up until literally yesterday,
mhm.
past the due date of this piece. That I was heavily debating detailing the fifth night, which is this is the fourth night that guy went through. I was heavily debating going past where I ended and detailing the fifth night, which would have been essentially a retread with minor changes that shows, yeah, no, this guy is A, aware, and B, very perceptive. And I decided, you know what? No, like, I don't want to reread the same thing with minor changes in dialogue.
Yeah.
yeah,
No,
for
that
sure.
makes sense. I mean, yeah, that's the trouble with Groundhog Day things is you can only show it once.
Once you
Otherwise,
do it
It,
once,
when you
yeah,
when you think like
it's like you have
I
to
want
like
you to think
add
about
and
every
have it go
Groundhog
back.
Day. I want you to think about every Groundhog Day story you've ever seen ever. They eventually come to like a freaking montage, right, of them
where they
trying
just
to
speed
do
run
something to.
everything.
Perfect. Yep.
Yeah, it eventually comes to a montage of like how many times they fuck up in the Groundhog Day or what they do, and it doesn't even detail the whole day. It just skips to the one thing they try and change and how it fucks up the rest of it
Yep.
really quickly in like 5 seconds.
Yep. You're right. Mm-hmm.
That's because it'd be boring to detail the whole day
Yep.
over and
every
over
single
again,
time.
indefinitely.
Yeah.
Well, good. I mean, yeah, it was good for what it was. So, good job, Cody.
Definitely.
All
All
right.
right. Next up's Cameron.
Yep. Go ahead and open my buzz.
Hold on. Let me grab my phone and actually fucking go to yours. I put my phone down. Okay, there we go.
All right. I'm sorry for how long this is. I didn't know it was 5 page. I thought it was 7. That's totally my bad. So,
You stuck with him.
all right. Here we go. The fire on the logs had long been extinguished, yet some of the embers still crackled within the burnt wood. Empty brownish red aluminum cans littered the dusty campsite dunes. This once shining city of innovation now rusted to a point of decay. From now acts as a haunting reminder that If this was how the best was living, then the rest of the world must be so much worse. It's here that we follow the story of 3 survivors who have banded together to meet here at the ruins of a Hyperloop train station to converse and trade, pretending to get away from the bleak reality that surrounds them. A young goggle-wearing man wraps a new, less brown rag around his nose and mouth. He places a dirty can of artificial spam to the side of him and clears his throat. War. War never changes. Now, Maki, I'm gonna stop you there. You see, you do this every time we got a fire going, and you said you would stop. Alright, Uncle Sam, alright. I'll stop. You just focus on not dying, and I'll... Oh no, boy, I'm serious this time. Why on this bad, dead wasteland would you start off your store sounding like that? Ain't no war going on. Ain't no war back then, neither. Hasn't been a war in over 50 years, and the wasteland only began 5 of those ago. Now stop it with your silliness. I'm sick of your storytelling. Uncle Sam continues to mumble at the rest of his insults. The old man who goes by Sam was once a wealthier man from a wealthier time. He now had wrinkles to match his age. His white wispy hair had become shaggy, unkempt, and patchy. Oh gosh, where am I? Despite his past life of decent luxury, Sam was a smart and kind man to all. It was he who originally started the weekly event of encouraging humans to once again band together after it seemed the apocalypse had come. After his legacy of inventing had seemingly been erased, Sam now ushered the development of his new legacy, the campfire at the Hyperloop station, the trading safe space of the new world. Yeah, well, I'm sick of your cooking, you old baboon, Mike says while blowing snot dust from one nostril. I'm sick of you, Mikey. Now open your bag. I want to see what you got to trade. Jess, you want to trade? Found anything good today? Sam nods at Jess, our last survivor of the musketeers of the wasteland. Jess, a woman hidden behind a gas mask, snaps out of her daze and looks up to the 2 older men. Small lives lay exposed on her leather jacket and pants, a sign to any other wastelander that this woman was a lone survivor. Jess had good reason to distrust the men of the wasteland, as history had always encouraged men to see women as valuable slaves in times of desperation. After not being able to find her family, Jess had begun pondering if it would be worth it to set aside her pride for easy living in the apocalypse, to let a man rule over her as a slave master would. All this for complete access to a strong man's resources and his protection. But when Jess finally decided to let her pride go and find a barbarian to conquer her, all she could find were Uncle Sam and Mike, 2 men who were just as desperate for normalcy as she was. Mikey interrupts as Jess doesn't immediately answer. I sure did. Found some decent treasures in that neighborhood full of big houses. But you 2 can't get the goods. Only whatever else Oh, shut up, Mikey. I was asking Jess. Oh yeah. I didn't find anything good, but maybe you 2 got something I want? Jess pulls her knapsack in front of her and begins digging inside. That's the point of trading, sweetheart. The world's already ended. Why would we change our most human habits? Hoarding selfish desires and throwing away the rest. Uncle Sam solemnly says as he too begins to rustle through his pile of suitcases just behind his tent. I got this cool knife, Sam. How about you trade me for that box of tools you've been keeping for so long? You couldn't have them if I was cold and dead. Jess, doll, do your Uncle Sammy a favor and make sure to bury me with my toolbox. Sure thing, Uncle. And Mike, that's just a butcher's knife. It's not all that cool. Mikey pulls the knife into the air and examines it against the orange clouds that covered the sky. Despite his ignorance, there was no doubting the quality of the knife's blade. It must have been brand new, even by the old Innovation World standards. Most would suspect it was hidden away in a box of some kind, but as every metal material was breaking down at an accelerated rate, it was still odd to see such a clean and sharp tool available. All metals were becoming increasingly rare by the month. Tools, weapons, everything with metal was rusting away into orange metallic dust. What's it for then? Cooking? Oh, Jess, you want to trade for my cool cooking knife? Mikey suggested, and although it was out of kindness, Jess had to refrain from taking any offense. Sure, Mike. I'll trade you for your cool kitchen knife. I don't think there's anything in here you want, though. I haven't found anything good in. Jess halts mid conversation as she pulls out a clean, chromatic cylinder with a glass top from her bag. Inside the cylinder, compact swirling circuitry resonating a neon yellow energy sparks blue flames at random intervals. It vibrated in her hands and weighed virtually nothing, but its origin confused the woman. How did this get in here? I don't remember picking this thing up. Dibs! Mikey shouts. His butcher knife clatters across the partially exposed tile of the Hyperloop station as he frantically snatches the device from Jess's palm. Mikey, what has gotten into you? You could have impaled Jess. Be more careful, you hear? Uncle tries reprimanding the boy, but Mikey is too giddy with excitement to acknowledge his wasteland friends. Mikey pulls out a shoebox from his backpack and pulls out a chrome-plated flashlight. Unscrewing the back of it, he dumps out an empty battery and loads in the new one he had just taken from Jess. Jess scoots the knife back to Mike, unsure if she is willing to trade for just this, if Mikey's space gadget seems more valuable than the battery itself. Uncle Sam swallows for a second before shuffling closer to Mike. Is that a wishing wand? You bet your toolbox it is. Sorry, Jess interrupts. What's a wishing wand? It's real easy. Sam, explain it to her so I can get us somewhere with loot. Jess turns to Uncle, who hesitates before regaining his cool composure. A wishing wand is a tool I invented with my inventor brother from the old world. It's a child's toy. A very rich child's toy. The device can read the current flowing through your cerebral, through the palm of your hands with it. You can think of going to any place or think of getting to anything, and it will open a portal to that place or thing. So it can go anywhere? Jess asked. Well, it goes wherever you want, but it defaults to whatever is closest to your original place. So if you want to go to the beach, don't expect it to be in China. Expect it to be at your nearest beach. Mikey points the flashlight at Uncle's tense wall and flicks the switch. A yellow portal ignites open on the side of the cloth, and blue sparks fly out and get sucked back inside as a black hole does with light. It does this, coating the entire campsite in changing hues of gold and teal, swirling and vibrating the air around them, followed by a low-pitched hum. Mikey's rag flies from his face and he's seen smiling with an open mouth, laughing with pure excitement in a change from the dreary world around them. Let's go, you guys! Mikey shouts before running headfirst into the portal. Uncle? Jess looks up and sees Sam packing a small bag full of tools. We can come back for the rest of our things. Let's see where Mikey's paradise takes us. Jess picked up the butcher's knife and put it in her knapsack. Uncle held out his hand and helped her up as the two approached it and entered the portal. Within less than a millisecond, all the electricity within the two travelers' atoms were untethered from their orbit and redirected to a new area from which the other end of the portal would reconstruct the atoms to a completely identical state they originally operated as. Passage through the portal felt like a full-body pinch. The travelers' vision vibrated slightly and their head echoed with a minor headache, but they made it. They had traveled through the apocalypse using a wishing wand. Instantly upon making it to the other side, Jess and Uncle had appeared in the dunes of a neighborhood of mansion ruins. Mikey was seen cursing God, pounding the sand with his gloved fist and crying on his knees. So this is Mikey's paradise? Not what I would have wished for, but to each their own. Jess mocked and placed a hand on her hip, admiring the annihilation of a rich society. Mikey, why are you wasting that battery for this dump? I wish for more wishing wands, you big meanies. Mickey got up from his knees and brushed off his pants. His head hung low in defeat for a moment. This is the place I found the wand. It was just sitting in a box under the couch, but the battery was dead. Under a couch? That shouldn't be enough to protect it from the elements, Jess thought. You're light. Did you check the thing first to make sure it wasn't broken? I don't know how it works, you old fart. I just knew what it did. It can't be broken. It can't. Mikey walks up to the flat side of a crumbled wall and clicks the wishing wand once more. If this doesn't work, y'all can have this stupid thing and I'll kill myself. Before anyone could stop him, Mikey ran into a newly formed portal. Jess and Uncle looked at each other for a moment. Jess, expecting Uncle to walk back to the campsite with her, watches the old man in confusion as he walks towards the portal. If he's serious, I can fix that wand and get us someplace nice. Who knows? Maybe there's still some normal place on the planet we can't find, but the wand can. Sam looks at Jess. You coming, doll? On the other side of the portal, Jess and Uncle Sam end up placing their shoes on fresh tiled ground. The inside furnishings of a pre-apocalyptic mansion surround them. Mike lays propped up on an expensive couch and throws his dusty coat arms into the air. Electricity powers the lights and ceiling fan. It's clean and modern for the wanderers. Welcome to King Mikey's castle. Make yourselves at home. Well, paint me purple. You actually got us somewhere nice. Yeah, well, kind of gave up on wishing around for more wishing wands. I just don't think it likes that kind of wish, you know? Maybe it's selfish with being used and such. Don't matter to me. I just didn't think I'd live to see the day you did anything right, boy. Sam says as he begins to wander up the staircase to the second floor. Jess, want to cuddle and watch a movie on the TV? Mike boldly suggests, however, Jess refuses. Not a chance. Here's your cooking knife back. I'm gonna go see if there's anyone outside. If we're in a neighborhood that's managed to survive, then we're not the only ones anymore. We get to live like humans, not animals. Jess begins to make her way to the door and stops as she grabs the door handle. Thank you, Mikey, for all this. I owe you and that one my life. As Jess opens the door, she watches Mikey for a reaction, unsure if her denial towards him would harbor any sort of resentment. Mikey, however, shrugged it off and turned on the television without another thought. Jess sighed and closed the door behind her as she stepped onto the porch. Only after had she finished thinking about Mikey did she see it. A void of pitch-black nothing surrounding the floating island the mansion rested on. It was empty, without wind, without any amount of light besides the light coming from the home. The darkness was incomprehensible in distance, but as Jess peered over the island's edge, the dirt fell into the void, disappearing into the black expanse below. Calmly, Jess entered back inside the house and held the door handle in her hand for a moment, trying not to explode from pure terrifying confusion. Sam, shortly after hearing Jess return, came rushing down the stairs. Mikey, where did you take us? Uncle shouted in such a booming voice, Mikey, who was already laying rested, almost fell out of the couch. What? What are you talking about, you geezer? The wishing wand, Mikey. Where did you wish us to go? To a house that wasn't wrecked by all that particle accelerator junk? What's the problem with that? You wanted a house where the particle accelerator caused an apocalypse? Jess adds herself to the conflict. Mikey, we're not even on our home planet anymore. Mikey swapped bewildered looks between Uncle and Jess. What? You guys must be lying, trying to trick me. Where the hell would we be? Last I checked, this is a human house. They got human TV and human movies. Mikey, we're floating around in nothing. There's nothing outside this house. Jess tries to explain, but Mikey gets off the ground and goes to check the front door himself. Wherever you wish to be, the wishing wand dropped us off here. Mikey looks out the window for a moment in silence. His fist curls up and begins shaking in anger. This is bull. We're leaving now. Mikey pulls the wand from his jacket and tries to ignite another portal onto the front door. The wishing wand's bulb glows for a moment and then cuts out. Mikey presses the switch again and again, but the wishing wand refuses to activate. No! Come on! Why won't... Ah! Mikey exclaims and throws a lamp onto the ground, sending glass shattering across the floor. It's broken, Sam comments. It's not! Mikey sighs and holds out the wand to the old man. Is there any way you can fix it? Sam examines the wand for a moment before nodding. I can. Seems like a wire in the bulb got tangled in the battery, and the battery's still good. Just gotta get in there with my tweezers and seal it back up. After that, we should probably head back to the station and sit on this technology for a while before using it again. Sounds good? Mike stares down Sam with a frustrated look before replying. Yes. Good. I'll get started. Why don't you two try and go and relax for a bit? Sleep on these comfy beds while you have the chance. Sounds good, Uncle. Thanks. Jess confirms while Mikey nods and returns to the couch to pout. Jess, there's a bedroom on the second floor. You should take that. Mikey and I will stay down here so you don't gotta worry about us. Thanks, Uncle. Jess doesn't want to sleep. After all the days she's lived through, today was by far the worst. She fought with her eyes to stay open, to make sure Uncle doesn't abandon them, however unlikely that may seem. Eventually, the comfort of a mattress, clean sheets, and a pillow won her over, and Jess began to dream. Jess woke up in her bed and made her way to the bedroom window. Uncle walked from the porch to the edge of the island, wishing wand in hand. He stared down into the black abyss below the island, standing uncomfortably close to the island's edge. Sam raised his hand and pointed the wishing wand at the bottom of the abyss, switching it on. But instead of the beam being swallowed by the darkness or opening a portal, it instead showed a light at what lay at the bottom. At the bottom of the void was someone who looked related to Uncle. Jess's first thoughts were that this was Sam's brother, but for what he had wished for was unclear. Uncle raised his leg and hovered his foot above the void, dangling it above his brother that was at the bottom of this ocean of darkness. Jess, realizing what was happening, tried to lift the window to get Uncle's attention. However, as she thought to do this, Uncle dropped off the edge of the island, taking the wishing wand with him. Jess awoke in her bed by a loud thud that came from the first floor. Chills and cold sweats clung to her body and face as she quickly rushed down the staircase. On the first floor, Uncle Sam lay in a growing puddle of his blood. Standing above the man, wishing wand in one hand, butcher's knife in the other, stood Mikey. Mikey, too, was sweating and looked up at Jess with frantic eyes. He was going to leave us. I heard it in my sleep. Uncle was going to take the wishing wand with him. Mikey's eyes vibrated, unable to stay focused on one thing. Jess knew he was examining her for a response, and so Jess swallowed the knot forming in her chest and nodded. I believe you, Mikey. Thank you. Mikey smiled and let out a big breath of air. Good. We should get rid of the body. Jess refused to let her mind point out the absurdity of Mikey's idea, and nodded in agreement. The two picked up and dragged Uncle outside the house. Sam's blood left a trail down the porch and onto the lawn as he approached the island's edge. With one great heave, they tossed Sam's body into the abyss. It never made a sound, never hit a bottom. And when Mike was satisfied, he looked at Jess with a smile. Let's see if we can get this thing to work now that geezer's played with it for a bit. Jess grabbed a hold of the wishing wand and with one hand pulled it from Mike's palm. With the other hand, she placed it on his chest. Jess pushed Mike off the island's edge and into the void. Mikey screamed as he fell. Mikey never stopped screaming. No matter how far he fell, Mikey's screaming sounded the same as if it were right beside Jess. Jess waited for it to be stopped, for Mikey's voice to give out or disappear, but it never did. When Jess took her first step back, however, the island slightly tilted. Barely visible, a black tower emerged from the darkness around the island. It bent over and curved as a mass of black tendrils and insect legs. Insect legs. The tower crashed onto the island and began pulling it down into the abyss. Jess ran for her life, darting on the porch, only to crash into the ground when a leg of the tower caught her boot. Jess manages to kick herself free and scrambles inside the house, but as she flicks the wishing wand switch, the bulb begins to glitch out, strobing and opening dozens of portals within seconds. The portals created become different colors with different swirling energies sparkling from their centers. The house continues to rotate, and more black towers of incomprehensible terrors tear through the home, shredding it apart like paper. Jess crawls as far back as she can into the living room, slamming the wishing wand with her palm and begging for it to fix herself. When the roof of the building is torn off, Jess looks up into the black sky above. A single yellow reddish eye the size of a solar system fixates on her. Out of desperation, Jess tries one last time to open a portal. The previous portals polka dotting the walls and floor begin to merge, cracking the barriers of reality with electric burns and tearing apart all the matter at an atomic level. The wishing wand does not activate in Jess's hands as she wishes to experience any other death than this. Before a swirling mess of tentacles can grab a hold of the final wanderer, Jess slips between the barriers of many portals, the wishing wand falling from her hands and landing on the house's tiles. The entire house begins to vibrate before snapping back into the post-apocalyptic reality. Dust covers its floor, orange clouds soar overhead, and a wanderer climbs over one of the building's crumbled walls. Mikey begins scavenging for anything to trade with, only to catch a box in the corner of his eyes. A box underneath the couch. Mikey pulls out the box and opens it, revealing a factory new wishing wand. He almost can't believe his luck, but when he tries to activate it, the wand doesn't respond. Mikey puts the wand in its box and gets up to leave. On his way out, he comes across a knife, only there's a little blood on it. The blood's fresh, and Mikey calls out for anyone who may have either used it or been stabbed by it. When no one responds, Mikey cleans the blade with his face rag and stashes the knife in his bag as well. He then begins his journey back to the Hyperloop station. There aren't many people left to trade things. It seems like every day the particle accelerator malfunctioned, that more and more people disappear. An apocalypse with no bodies. An apocalypse with only 3 survivors. All who were never familiar with each other in the old world, but immediately in the new world felt a sort of connection. Mikey wondered if maybe he was too trusting. That maybe he had made a family with these 2 strangers despite never knowing them. But for some reason, their fates being tied together just made sense in his head. Alright, and that's it. I'm sorry for my bad speaking.
You're good.
I see you went the Eldritch Horror Groundhog Day route.
Yeah, so basically, when I heard wishes, I instantly thought, perfect, I'm going to do one of the most classic kinds of wishing stories ever, which is the monkey's paw.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what I did here. Basically, yeah, you get your wish granted, but it gets granted in such a way
Close enough.
that's so awful every time.
So I have to ask, Jesse is alive and still going to the Hyperloop station in this reality? Or is it supposed to be somebody else?
No, that's Mikey. That's how he finds.
No. But I'm saying, but it's him and 2 strangers. So one would be Uncle Sam,
And the other one.
and then the other one would be Jesse.
Yep.
Okay, so the difference is in this reality, Jesse isn't the one to find the box.
She never did. It was Mikey. He always had the box because he had the wishing one.
Jesse just found a battery that made
She
it
had
work.
the battery, and why
okay.
she had a battery
I forgot.
was
You're right.
because she wished for death. At the very end, when she was in that house getting torn apart, she wishes for death, and so that's.
So she got a battery?
She gets the battery. She caused her own death in the future. Yeah.
She wishes for death, and so it gives her a battery that will eventually kill her.
Yeah, she wishes for death when she's in the middle of, almost dying or something.
Gotcha.
So that's the twist. It's like, yeah, she got death, but not there.
I did not even think about that. I did not even think about the battery being the gift of death.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they're... Cody, did you come to that conclusion or no?
Come to that conclusion, no.
I think that if there was anything else that you could say or allude to making that connection,
because she picks it out and says, "I didn't put this in my bag. I don't know how this got here. This is," and then Mikey snatches it instantly.
I guess that is there, but what I think you could have done is right at the end say that right as we stop seeing Jesse, right as like her existence ceases to be right there at the end,
Mm-hmm.
have it be that instead of the flashlight not having a reaction, just have it be that the flashlight like the back of the flashlight opens and the battery falls into her hand.
Or what
I
I
see
would
what you
say is
mean.
even more obscure, because like if you don't want to give it away that blatantly, just say that like her bag felt heavier
Well, and that I said that
in her final moment.
the battery it doesn't weigh anything
Okay.
whenever she first holds it. But if that would have been more clear to do what you're saying,
Yeah, I think
then yeah.
saying that her bag feels heavier or something like that, or like even her saying that like at some point, if you say like, um, whenever she went up to her bedroom, she took inventory and took everything out of her bag, but like she always keeps her bag on her, but she had emptied her bag, and then whenever she is in those final moments, she goes down and checks on Uncle Sam. She didn't pack her things, so her bag should still be empty. And then if you were to briefly say, but it felt like there was something in her bag, um, just to allude to its importance.
Mm-hmm. I see what you're
That's
saying.
the only thing, because like that's it. The story, I genuinely like it more knowing that the battery was her death. But I didn't get it until you told me, and possibly that could have been me because clearly I was confused about the
I also don't do a good job.
who had what in the first place, and that's just part of the discrepancy when it comes to a longer story is that things really have to pop and stand out for your reader to remember,
Well,
and sometimes they can be stupid like me.
no, it's okay. I get what you're saying. Just make it more obvious because I did hide stuff. Like even Mikey has the knife in the beginning, but because Jess wishes death, she doesn't take the knife when he initially trades it. She gives it back to him, meaning
Yeah.
that's why Uncle dies. She didn't just wish for her death; she wished for all three of their deaths, and that's why Mikey says that they
Clever
all feel
girl.
connected. And, anyways, yeah. Sorry, I was gonna just say there's the world building around it is basically the wishing wands got mass produced, and that's why everyone is disappearing. It's like because it's like tying together people.
Wishing for the wrong fucking thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it tricks them. So
Huh. That was for like the first quarter of it, like while they're still at the Hyperloop station, I was like, this feels like a modern day Shakespearean play where like
yeah,
this
it
is
sounded
something that I
bad.
would actually like to like what?
It sounds bad. It sounds like goofy.
No,
Oh,
no,
okay.
no, no, no. I mean, like, I thought it was going to be a dialogue piece of three characters talking about stuff in like a singular location, and the dialogue is what drives it forward with everybody. No one's addressing the elephant in the room that's like that death is inevitable, and
Yep.
that they're just pretending to have normalcy. And like that's where the direction I thought it was going. And I was like, this is really cool.
Yeah.
And then we get the two different scene changes, and that was sick as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Um,
I think it
that
would
was
look
really good. I did quite like it. If I may personally point out, I also was kind of in the same boat Brandon was in, thinking, oh, okay. And I thought you were going to like really go in depth with like describing the area they were in, describing this Hyperloop station, and having them just talk. And I thought you were going to do something similar like you did with Jess, where you gave Jess like an entire paragraph of like backstory. I thought you were going to do something similar with the other two as well, and then we were just going to learn about them in one paragraph, and then from there just see how their minds intersect with each other as they talk to each other.
Yeah, and that would have been a dope story too. But that's kind of why I did that part to get you interested and you to be like, oh my gosh, so like this is a kind of like futuristic world and stuff. And really that was truly all set up for the wishing wand to kind of match with the prompt for this. Because yeah, I could have done it like a different thing, but I thought this was a good twist on, or not even a twist, but just a good way to follow up the monkey paw style curse wish voodoo.
You have the inventor guy. You have Sam casually point out the wishing wand will take you to the closest thing that matches what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And so they teleported to the house that had the wishing wand in it, and Mikey comments, "No, this is just the house I found this wishing wand in."
Yeah. He
And
finds it.
so it's telling him, "No, this is where you're gonna this is where you're gonna find me. Like this is where I'm gonna be."
Yeah. Yeah, it's dope, huh?
Huh.
And then
Weird.
later they teleport again, and they're in the house in like this fucking endless void that I'm assuming is basically like a black hole scenario where time isn't passing and space is distorted.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Um, and I kind of realized in that moment when they're in this dark, endless abyss and void that it takes you to the closest thing that you wish for, but there's no limit to that distance if it just happens to be light years away, I guess,
no,
huh?
Mm-hmm.
it just threw you for a loop. It tricked you. Yeah, it brought them to a whole different kind of like dimension. So yeah,
Can I?
Like he went for, I want something made by human hands that isn't ruined by this apocalypse.
Yeah,
And the
something
correct
that's
answer was someplace that is not in this dimension.
exactly because everything was affected. It's a particle accelerator, meaning it affects time. Of course, that's gonna take precedent over the whole world.
Can I? Can I
That's also why all the
add
metal
a
is
shot?
rusting super quick.
Can I add a shot that I think would be cool?
Yeah.
If like you ever like decide to go back and touch this up again, one scene that I would add, and this would just be like a co-writer thing because I think it would be super cool, is if you wanted to give more time for Jess to explore Mikey's mentality before everything falls apart, so like it's not immediately afterwards.
Yeah.
I would say like a cool scene that you could add to sort of allude to. Of course, we already know that this place doesn't exist in our own physical space, but we don't know that it deals with time weird. That's not clear itself.
No.
So I
no.
think what would be cool is I think if like the two people, Jesse and Mikey, did like a 1, 2, 3 heave and they threw the body of Sam, and let's say like only half of it makes it off of the edge, and so like his lower half would like fly off or like be hanging off the edge, but like his top half smacks onto the ground and he slides off into the void, and then like a couple seconds or a couple minutes later he falls from the top, his smack half hitting again, and he slides off, and then that repeats ad nauseum, and that lets us know as readers, oh, it's not just space, it is space and time.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah.
I
You
thought
do
that would
point
be
out
cool.
you do point out that like that he never makes a sound when he hits the bottom,
Mm-mm.
or that when Mikey's falling, the scream always sounds like
The
it's right
scream
next
is
to
always
her.
the same.
Yeah.
But like, you know, if you were to add a scene
Ugh.
like that and then sort of have Jesse like explore the mentality of Mikey and be like, how do I handle this situation? And knowing the fact that the thud occurs every 30 seconds or something like that. And then what you could do is have her notice that it starts to speed up. Have her notice that the interval seems to be shrinking. And that's our allusion to things are about to collapse in what's in this area, wherever they're at. Because it starts to get like it goes 0 to 100 real fast, where the large towers start showing up and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Have her notice that like it's decreased to every 20 seconds. It's decreased to every 10.
So
It's decreased to every 5.
Or have
then
it
say,
have it
like,
be that like
and then say,
when Mikey's screaming, have it be that his scream sounds like it's getting higher
stop.
pitch.
Are
It's
you
speeding
guys
Or
up.
yeah,
are you guys like
yeah.
interested
Or
in
just
the
have it
world
stop
building
when
for it,
they.
or do we just want to write it? Because I
It's
have
just
I have things I had in mind, but obviously I can't say everything, so I have to just hint to it.
Yeah.
And
for
even
sure.
then, I went over page over. But basically, yeah, the particle accelerator speeded up the decay of all the metal. That's why the
Mhm.
super futuristic society completely collapsed and everything's orange and dusty. But also, as far as like the island floating through the void, that is first of all the dream sequence where Jess wakes up and she thinks that she woke up, but it's still just a dream, and Uncle is standing
Mhm.
over the ledge and flashes the light into the bottom of the void. The reason for that is for the world building. Uncle's already said that he invented the wishing wand with his inventor
Yeah.
brother. So his inventor brother also went on to make this particle accelerator that did this. And that's why
They're stuck in the accelerator. Is that what that is? We're in the accelerator, and his brother's at the bottom of it somehow.
So yes and no. First off, is like so that's why Uncle says his old world legacy is no more, because he literally destroyed the whole world with his brother. But his brother also disappeared kind of like the similar way as like this particle accelerator, whatever malfunctioned with it, it sent him into the void first.
Yeah.
So his brother is dead in the void, but he like died to the void. He's in there somewhere. He's not on the island.
Can I?
So when Uncle
Can I-
flashes his light and then falls
Go
in,
ahead.
it's referencing that he too is going to die here and live in this void. And then, but it's only because of Mikey, who's alive when he falls down. It acts as like a sacrifice to awaken this being outside of space and time. And that's what that's kind of what the wishing wand is connected to. It's like a pawn of its power.
Can I add one more shot, please?
Yeah,
Just because I really like this concept.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I think in that dream sequence, I think what would be really cool is while you have this parallel of like Sam looking down and seeing his brother, I think it would be really, because like we don't know that she's dreaming at first. I think it would be a really impactful scene if you see him like extend his hand and drop the wishing wand, because as readers we'd be like, there's no way he's trapping them here, and then you could say that his brother catches it, and then his brother lets go, and it comes back up into Sam's hand.
I see.
And then Sam
You know what I
steps off.
thought?
Yeah.
You know what I thought
That's
you were
good.
going to suggest?
Mhm.
I thought what you were going to suggest is Sam looks down at his brother who is below him, and then Jess looks up to see the brother above Sam.
Yeah,
That too. Something like that, yeah. Just really, really, I know that you're dealing with a page constraint, but if you really do want to touch this up, like really you've created this space that exists outside of space and time, and because of your like limit to constraint of
Yeah.
page length,
It
you
wasn't
really
important.
couldn't allow yourself to be fun with it. But please, by all means, have fun with it. Because there's a lot of fun things you can do with it. When you say, oh, time doesn't matter, space doesn't matter, and everything's happening at once and not
Exactly.
happening at all.
Exactly.
Really play with it.
It's like a paradox that's already a paradox. These people are dying,
For sure.
but because they die, they are cursed to die when they're alive. And it just repeats in that kind of way, which doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
You did in fact write about the Eldritch horrors beyond our comprehension.
Yeah.
What would you give your score?
That's what I was gonna ask. Yeah, what do you think?
Well, I went over the page limit.
Tisk, tisk, tisk.
And I
Instantly 0.
I wish I could have made it longer. So
No, definitely.
if I could have
I
made
feel
it
you.
longer, I would have done so, like, just being able to describe it all. I had this beautiful envisionment for every single part of it, but because of the restraints and whatnot, I can't have those beautiful details that would also play into it. The most I could fit is like in the very beginning, the fire on the logs had long been extinguished, yet some of the embers still crackled within the fire or burnt wood. You know, just like it's dead, but it's still live, and all that stuff. It's definitely. I liked it a lot. I had the idea instantly. If I could change anything, just be able to write more. So I'll give myself.
Numerical.
I'll give myself an 8.
It personally, if your only limiting factor was page length, I'm personally going to give you like a 9.5 even.
Whoa.
Because I'm not going to consider just what you wrote. I'm going to consider what I think you could have written if we had randomly made the page length to be 10 pages.
Well, thank you.
I think that would have been the
That's a
best
big-
story here that we've done so far. Easily. So
think
I'll
I
give
think
it a
I'm gonna have
9.
to. I think I'm gonna have to go with a 9 as well. I think that page length is really a problem whenever it's too short, right? Um, because you can release a book with too many pages and people will still read it. But when you have a story to tell, and it feels like a text message, that's a different place, right? So, although yeah, we do want to stick within those parameters, I understand that sometimes ideas are so big, and that really is part of that's the other half of what we're trying to
It
deal with
kills
right
me
now,
every week.
with these writing prompts. Yeah, is knowing the constraints and forcing yourself to put yourself in a creative box. So that way, when you're not doing these stories, your parameters, you have so much more room to fill up.
Yeah.
Um, so for that reason, there is optimization that could have been done. I'm glad you didn't do it, but for the sake of what our constraints are supposed to be,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can't say a
I
10.
failed.
As well as, you've got every once in a while, I think honestly, if you did choose to pursue this a little bit further, I would say what you might want to consider, you have to, of course, it's your envisionment, but might change everything to first person from Jess's perspective,
Mm.
because I think that this is something that really could be converted into an audio drama, in a storytelling format,
Mm.
like a nice like 20-minute story. I think, or 20-30 minute story. I think would be a great like audio episode, but it would have to be changed from perspective. Have her be the narrator in trying to read people. That'd be a very easy thing to do if you ever chose to do that.
I see
But
what you're saying.
keep it how you want for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think a 9 is a great fitting for it.
Thank you. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Let me open up
I
brackets
guess.
now.
Well, I have to ask, Cody, do you have a name for your piece at all or no?
If I my name is always just the name of the prompt, but if I had to give mine a name, it would literally have just been to wish upon a star.
Gotcha. Cameron, did that piece have a name?
Yeah, it was Wishing Wand, which I'm surprised the concept wasn't more confusing. Because it's
All right, I guess.
yeah.
Yeah. I guess I'll get started with mine. My story is called Toads to Catch in Autumn. I don't know if you know this about me, but I love making nonsensical titles. They're my favorite. So, y'all ready? Forgive me if I'm a little
Yeah.
congested. I want to preface this by saying you'll figure it out very quickly, but this is not in the to be read in the voice of a 21-year-old man. This is a younger child or a kid, right? Not necessarily younger, but a kid for sure. So please keep that in mind and forgive my uh, voice and congestion that doesn't necessarily fit the narration. All
No,
right,
go for it.
Toads to Catch in Autumn. A screech pierces the quiet that permeates around me. As I tear the tape across the serrated edge of the roll, I pat the sticky side down onto the cardboard. With a puff of my chest, I pick up the newly sealed box and make my way with it to the garage. Dust pushes its way through the air, as I, not so gracefully, set the box down on the miniature trailer attached to my bike. The two black straps I have closed down over the box with a tug, securing them in place. 2 boxes, 1 delivery. I flick a cricket that has chosen my black bicycle seat as its home. Slowly, I pick up my legs and around the shiny dark red frame of my ride, resting my feet upon the pedals. 2 small pushes of struggling to get the gears turning is all it takes, and then I'm down the driveway. As I pedal at a graceful pace, the wind weasels its way through my hair, guiding the smaller strands like leaves in a breeze. I wave at Mrs. Carter like I always do on these early 7 a.m. deliveries. She waves back with a smile, her eyes trailing behind me as I make my way down the street. She's such a sweet woman, I think to myself. I make a mental note to stop by on my way back home for a visit. Her skin shines in the light, a radiance of health and positivity. It's no secret why she sits on the porch at all times throughout the day. Everyone on the block whispered and murmured for weeks after her husband went missing a month ago. Talks of him having an affair and running off with a mistress of the night were the main words spoken. The adults subscribed to this belief the most, some people even claiming to have seen Mr. Carter and a young woman together. Mr. Palace, the owner of the corner store, said he even saw the two share a kiss behind the chip rack display. Even though that was the main theory, that didn't stop people from letting their imaginations run wild with the other possible ways he went missing. Talks of him secretly involved with drugs and a deal gone wrong. Talks of him driving to work and running off the road into a recessed ditch in a tragic accident. The whole neighborhood was very supportive. They really were. For days, people would stop by and chat, keeping her company and bringing her cooked meals. As the days turned into weeks, however, noticeably less people stopped by her house. They lost track of time or became too busy for the presumed widow. She was a widow, at least in the eyes of her neighbors. Not one person thought her husband would ever return. Well, that is, except for Miss Carter. All talks of him being deceased or running off with a younger lady went in one ear and then out the other when it came to her. Every day, a smile perched on her face. She sat on her porch, patiently waiting for her man to pull into the driveway, insisting that he's a good, faithful man and that he will return to her soon. To me, though, she doesn't look like she's waiting. When she sits on her porch, it more so seems like she's enjoying the fall breeze and the breath in her lungs, savoring the cool air without a care or deadline in the world. And what do I think? Well, I don't. I don't think Mr. Carter is coming back because I know that Mr. Carter isn't coming back. Sam and I love frog collecting. All the kids do. After a hot, sticky summer day, if you walk down the steep cliff behind George Summers' old house, you'll find a small winding creek loaded to the brim with toads. I think it's like a bathhouse for them. All the toads will manage to crowd together at the bend of the creek and croak and croak and croak. If you're fast enough, you can catch 2 or 3 before they scatter away in all kinds of different directions. However, Sam and I learned that if you're really quiet, very careful with your steps, you can scoop up 5 or 6 before the rest of the group even notice. 2 weeks ago, Sam and I were catching toads when I heard a scream. As all the toads around hopped off into the brush, I turned to voice my frustration at him for being so inconsiderate. When I whipped around, though, I couldn't find Sam. The area behind Mr. Summers' backyard is kind of like a staircase. At the top step is the house, with a broken chain link fence that's easy to climb. Down this steep cliff, probably about 15 feet or so, is the creek where we catch toads. Lastly, there's another cliff from the side of the creek, another 15-foot drop that leads into the woods. I quickly realized that Sam must have slipped down into the woods from the cliff. Peering over the side, my eyes fell on Sam, who was wiping off the dirt and leaves from his new blue jeans. "There ain't no toads down there, Sam. Thought you knew this already." He shot me a dirty look and I laughed as he yelled back, "I know there ain't no toads. Do you think I'm dumb enough to do this on purpose?" I shrugged my shoulders and began to slide down at an angle, careful to control my speed. This was a rule we had made up. If one person slides down too far past the creek, the other one has to slide down too, so they leave together. No one goes into the woods alone and makes it out. Well, shoot. Guess that's enough collecting for today. By the time we get back up, it'll be dark already, Sam said as he shook dirt from his boot. And he was right. There wasn't any quick way out of the woods and back up to the street. The 2 cliffs were too much for kids like us to climb, even if we were monkeys. From down in the woods, it would take about an hour walk to reach the road, and then another hour to follow that road through town and back to the neighborhood. My feet crunched under the leaves as I began to walk past Sam, eyeing the slowly falling sun in the distance. "Where you going?" the voice behind me asked. Looking over my shoulder back at Sam, I replied, "Only way out is around, so if you don't want to be stuck here alone, I suggest you put your boots back on and get to walking with me." The creek that runs behind Mr. Summers' house winds through the first cliff drop-off and then down into the woods. Some of the older kids say that it runs into the ocean, and that sometimes sharks will swim up and get the people who stay in the woods for too long. The adults say that the older boys are just being mean and teasing, explaining that it runs into a lake. Sam and I have tried to walk the stream, trying to find where it ends, but we always end up losing the trail of it, or it gets too dark and we have to turn around. We do know that about a mile in or two into the woods, it forks off into two paths. If you follow the path onto the left, you'll eventually end up at the little pond that sits right behind the third grade teacher Miss Martin's home, right next to the road that leads through town back home. If you follow the path on the right, good luck. I haven't been able to find an end to it, no matter how hard I've tried looking. Sam and I hadn't been walking for more than 30 minutes when we saw something out of the ordinary. Right in front of us, sitting perfectly still in the middle of the woods, was a car. An all-black 1982 Mustang sat dirtied and dead, surrounded by trees at all sides. Beneath it ran the creek water, centered between all four tires. The most peculiar thing we had discovered from our many walks of shame back into town after sliding too far was the Water Watcher. Sam came up with the name first, but I found out the rule of it. See, someone has to be looking at the creek at all times when you're in the woods. For some reason, if no one is looking at the water while you're trying to get back into town, the creek dries up and you get lost. I don't know if the water just disappears or maybe it soaks into the ground, but for some reason, it only exists continuously if you watch it all the way from where you first find it until you make your way out. So, seeing this odd car in front of us created a weird but easily fixable problem. We both couldn't just walk around the car and keep going, or else it would disappear. Sam and I played rock, paper, scissors, but he won, so he got to be the one to go around while I water watched. I continued to focus on the slow-moving stream while he walked around the car to watch the water for me on the other side. Once he reached the driver's side door, he screamed. I heard him fall onto his butt and scoot away from the car in a panic. Every fiber in me yelled to identify the threat, to check on him, to see what happened, but I held steadfast. If I broke my focus with the water, we'd have to walk back to the cliff and try again. That'd take way too much time, and Mom would already be upset if I showed up home any later than I already was going to. What happened? What is it? I yelled, not really expecting a response. I heard him crawl on all fours to the front of the car and let out a long-held breath. Just go. I'm watching. Just go. Don't look at the car. Just don't. Was it a joke? A prank on my behalf? I couldn't figure out what could have made him so frightful so fast, so I brushed it off and made my way around the car. Its black paint seemed to be chipped and dented in many spots, twigs poking and scratching the exterior. It looked as if it had been here for weeks. As I passed the driver's side window, I held my breath and gazed inwards. A scream bubbled inside me and attempted to hurtle through my lips. I choked on my own breath while trying not to react exactly how Sam had. Sitting in the driver's seat, both hands on the wheel, was Mr. Carter. His skin was rotting and falling off in chunks around the skull. His whole body reeked of death and decay. Animals and the weather had clearly made him into a plaything, a conglomeration of decomposition and unintelligible injuries. In the passenger seat beside him was an expensive-looking pink purse, enough blood splattered over the side of it and the dashboard to tell me that whoever had been sitting there couldn't be alive anymore. Lying just below the empty seat was a lonely slipper. Vomit splashed out of my mouth and over the car door, a compromise for the unsuccessful scream. I told you not to look, Sam argued as we slowly made our way from the car. What happened to him? He continued while glancing back at the unmoving body and vehicle. Looks like he came in here with someone else. When whoever was riding shotgun died, he was left in the woods, alone. It wasn't too much longer until we reached the split in the stream. As we took a sip of the running water with our cupped hands, I noticed Mr. Summer walking towards us from the right path, dripping with water all over. When he noticed us noticing him, he stopped his pacing and smiled at us. "Oh, hello, children. What are you doing all the way out here? What a pleasant surprise seeing you." I wiped my mouth dry with my shirt and quickly stood to my feet. "Hi, Mr. Summer. We're just making our way home." His smile persisted as he played with the water of the stream by kicking it, his dress shoes sopping wet. Are you one of the boys here to make a trade with me?" His smile unsettled me, but his question even more so. He had never asked us this before. "No, sir, I don't think so." With this, the veins in his neck strained, and I felt as if a cold, angry sigh seeped through his teeth. "Collecting toads, were we? Any big ones? From my experience, the biggest toads are down this way, just at the clearing." Sam, by this point, had stood as well and shook his head. "No, sir, nothing too big, but we really must get going home now." Mr. Summers sat down in the creek. Water darkened his khakis and rushed past him and over his lap, continuing its stream through the woods. "Oh, but surely you have time to come see how big they are. Perhaps your mother will forgive you for being late, Samuel, if you show her the biggest toad she's ever seen. Do you think?" This clearly struck a nerve. There's two things about Sam that no one's allowed to do, not without a swift punch to the jaw. No one picked a fight with Sam because he could hit harder than anyone we knew, even the older kids. If they did pick a fight with him, they never took things too far, though. No one ever called him by his full name, Samuel, and no one brought up his dead mom. I could see his fist clench with rage at Mr. Summers as Mr. Summers had said that. The old man's face was still grinning, ear to ear, an invitation that didn't seem nearly as warm as it should have. "No," Sam said, as he turned and began walking down the left side back towards town. "No, thank you, Mr. Summer. Thank you, Mr. Summer," I said softly as I began to chase behind Sam, waving at the old man. His smile followed us as he began to lay down in the creek, floating back down the right path where he had come from. "Goodbye, children. See you again soon." There's a lot of things about Mr. Summer that we knew. There's a lot of things about him we didn't know. We knew that he used to live in the house on the cliff edge until the fire department remarked it as unlivable because of the loose soil it sat on. We knew that Mr. Summers slowly spent less time in town and more time in the woods until that eventually evolved into only being seen in the woods. We knew you had to be polite to him if you came across him in the woods. Use your manners and always respond. He only showed up sometimes when kids walked the creek. We never knew what it was that made him come. He always comes from the right side of the creek, dripping with water. When he approaches you and asks you to follow him, you're always supposed to say no. Gwen Palace's older brother, Michael, followed Mr. Summer one time when the siblings were walking. No one's ever saw Michael again, though. So the kids nowadays know not to follow him, to thank him, and to let him float back down the stream alone. He always knew things that he shouldn't, though, and we don't know how. From the few times Sam and I have run into him, we've never given him our names, and we've certainly never told him about Sam's mom. Up in the distance, we could see the road and Miss Martin's home next to the small pond. Maybe we could knock on her door and ask for a snack before we made the homestretch walk. A rhythmic grunt and thwack grew louder as we approached the road. On the edge of the tree line was Miss Martin, axe in hand, splitting wood. A heavy grunt would leave the tall woman's chest as she raised the axe above her head. A booming thwack would follow lightning fast after she brought down the blade onto the standing log, having it. Good heavens, boys, why aren't you at home? It's practically night already. Her country bass-filled voice let out. Sheepishly, we looked at the ground. Although she hadn't been our teacher for a couple of years, it still seemed wrong to disappoint her. We were catching toads and then we slid down too far. So we're going home now, swear. As she set down her axe against the log pile, she approached us. You didn't talk to any strangers, did you? We both shook our heads. No, ma'am, just Mr. Summer. Her gaze drifted into the distant woods behind us, shaking her head just like we had. That crazy man, always trying to make deals. Sam and I looked at her puzzled. Deals? Her scowl focused in on us. You haven't heard none of the stories from the older kids? He's changed his tactics. From my understanding nowadays, he sometimes tries to make a trade with you kids, promising them whatever they want if they bring him whatever he asks for. Sam swatted a fly away from his head. I thought he made people disappear, though, like what happened with Michael. Miss Martin made her way back to the splitting stand. Not every story you hear is true, boys, you know that. And with that, she began splitting her wood again. We made it back home just as the streetlights turned on. I waved bye to Sam as I stepped through my front door, his house only a couple down from mine. I got a good scolding from my mom before being told to take a shower and go to bed. Laying there under my mind kept circling back to what Miss Martin had said and why that car was in the woods. Unable to wrap my mind around such an odd concept, I drifted into sleep, my vision black, much like the sky blotted out by the trees of the woods. I have to slow my turn while on 12th Street, careful not to let the boxes slide around too much on the back of my trailer. The autumn air around me is easy to breathe. Although it's upsetting that there aren't any toads in the creek this season, I think next year will be better. The wheels on my bounce as they roll onto the gravel back roads on the outskirts of town. I make sure to wave at Miss Martin, who stands outside of her garden watering her plants. The sun above makes the handlebars of my bike glitter, and I follow the creek through the woods. Sam and I had never followed the creek backwards before, but as of late, gotten better and better at water watching while steering my bike. Sam isn't a fan of going to the woods on purpose, especially when there isn't any toads to catch, so he doesn't come with me on deliveries like this. I follow the creek all the way down until the fork, one path leading to the unknown and the other leading to the cliff. I make my way on the path towards the cliff and I find what I'm looking for. The Mustang sits still where it's always sat, but now several mirrors surround it, all pointed at the water. It took a lot of trial and error to get the mirrors positioned perfectly to water wash from anywhere around the car, but the system I have now works great. Ripping the tape off the top box, I pull out a small saw and a mask. Being careful to always have a mirror inside aimed at the water, I pull my mask over my nose and mouth as the car door opens. Mr. Carter still sits in the front seat, but his hands no longer onto the wheels. With some hard-working, calloused hands I've built from helping Miss Martin split wood, I've made quick work of sawing through the left foot of the man. Part of me expects a scream, but I've done this enough now to know that it won't happen from him or me. With my work done, I prop the body back onto the sitting position. Difficult now that he has no arms and only one full leg minus the foot. I close the car door and put my tools back into its box I got them from after watching them in the stream. I then put the tape back in its place. I can't have my tools flying around and spilling out over the rough ground of these woods. The severed foot is placed into the other empty box, tape closing it as well. With everything back in place, I make my way to the fork in the stream and wait while unloading the once empty box off the trailer. Oh, hello, child. What are you doing all the way out here? What a pleasant surprise seeing you. I smile as I see him approaching, his body sopping wet and dripping, coming from the path on the right. I'm Mr. Summer. I'm just making my way home. I think I've figured it out. I think Mr. Summer only shows up and makes a deal when you have something he wants. part of someone to offer him. My dark red bicycle shines beautifully in the sun rays from above. Despite taking it through the woods several times, the paint still looks brand new, despite having it for over a week now. My new trailer is in great condition too. Its tires serving me well in my travels through the brush. My hands extend the box forward in front of me, his smile growing large and his eyes lighting up immensely. I remember how Miss Carter has been looking healthier and healthier each and every day despite her lung cancer diagnosis 5 weeks ago. I think about how I love my new bike. I think about how I have a great feeling there will be toads to catch in autumn.
So, so what kind of SCP nightmare did you have?
That's Mr. Summers.
That's Mr. Summer. Can I ask a question?
Please.
Is this town just a town where the supernatural is just known, like it's a known thing that things just occur
I think that's kind of like
Uh,
normal stuff for things back
for
in the
this
day,
place?
whenever it wasn't like modern yet, like kind of like Tom Sawyer-esque, is like tall tales and rumors. That's the
These
vibe I
people,
was
these
getting.
like these people just seem to openly accept. Oh yeah, the creek's gonna disappear if we don't look at it. And oh yeah, Mr. Summers, he's a weird ghost guy who constantly appears in the woods now.
I
Yeah.
feel like this is an environment where kids will always make up fables and believe them, and your average adult never will. But I feel like old people are especially lenient because their imagination isn't limited by the daily struggles of life. So I feel like in that regard, I feel like children and the elderly are the only people who are open to the supernatural.
Okay, fair enough.
They accept it, I mean.
Also, I love the idea that can I just point out I had no idea where you were going with the idea of wishes until you introduced Mr. Summers as this clearly supernatural entity that
He just
wants
floats up and
something.
down the river.
He
Yeah.
very clearly is like trying to get something, and I was like, is this a situation where if you give him what he wants or you do a thing for him, he gives you something back that you really want, no matter what it may be?
It kind of reminds me of I don't know if you know it. It's an old tale called Old Scratch, and that's basically the devil who you can come and trade things in order for him to give you things. That's kind of the vibe I was getting. It was kind of like a Tom Sawyer, Old Scratch kind of deal going
What
on.
I thought,
But Mr. Summers
what I
wasn't
thought,
evil.
what I thought you were gonna introduce the idea of, right? I thought you introduced the idea that the car was there and the dude was dead and the other guy and the girl he was with is dead. And I was like, whatever. What I thought you were going to introduce though is that Mr. Summers comes up and the girl mentioned, oh yeah, that's a new thing he started is trying to do trades. What I thought you were going to bring up is that like the person goes back and they're making deliveries to this guy. I basically figured out, oh, they're making deliveries to Mr. Summers.
Mm-hmm.
And what I thought it was going to be is every time you go back to Mr. Summers, he asks for something a little bit more.
Yeah.
And so what I thought was eventually going to occur, and what I thought you were building up to was Mr. Summers asks, "Hey, do you mind delivering me the head of the dead guy?"
You know, and escalation was definitely like something that I wanted to or toyed around, but because of the page limit, this sits right at like just about 5 pages. So I one of those things that couldn't be expanded, so that plot line had to be sort of sacrificed.
But that was like one of your initial ideas was to introduce the
For
idea
sure.
Mr. Summers wants more and more each time.
Well, I think what's also important to note is that at the end, our protagonist says that Mr. Summers only appears when he has something that he's willing to trade for, and he appears when there's two boys, and the two boys have nothing to trade, implying heavily that Mr. Summers was fully prepared and only showed up because he was anticipating that one of them would give the other boy as the sacrifice.
Yeah, that's And that's the weird thought I had, like, thinking about it as we were finishing, is you were explaining Mr. Summers only appears when did we have something he wants. I stopped. I was like, then why did Mr. Summers appear to them in the first place in the first run?
And when they say they're not here to make a trade, he's like, "Oh, well, you guys want to come see these toads?" And it's also important to note, like, there's definitely more supernatural elements going on, like the Water Watcher, as well as what happens when you're in the woods alone. So, can I ask you? I want you guys to sort of, what do you think is the plot line regarding Miss Mrs. Carter?
I don't know. That's
Mrs.
what I was about
Carter.
to ask. Yeah.
Sorry. I do have trouble remembering exactly who's who. Miss Carter is wood chopping lady.
No, Miss
No,
Carter
she
sits on her porch.
Oh, okay.
Miss Carter sits on her
Never
porch.
mind, never mind.
Okay.
I thought you were talking about the potential person that was riding in the passenger seat.
I honestly, you're asking what we thought the deal with Miss Carter was going to be?
Or yeah, or like even looking back retrospectively,
you know
like
what?
how do you
Maybe-
interpret her story?
Maybe that is her husband in there, in the Mustang, right?
Well, she says it is. Like the
Oh.
kids
Yeah.
say that they are. Like
Oh,
he
okay,
says
okay.
blatantly, like I know he's not coming back, and that's Mr. Carter.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
but maybe she made a trade with Mr. Summer to live from whatever happened. Or am I messing up?
So the plot line behind Mrs. Carter, and I knew I could have maybe put in more, is that they say that with all of the blood over the car and the purse, that like whoever sat in the shotgun is absolutely dead. Like there's no doubt about it.
Did I think I figured it out.
Go
Can I
ahead,
share?
Dusty. Yeah.
Did Miss Carter? Because Miss Carter seems she'll just be resting outside. Did Miss Carter find out about it? Get to their car where they were just hanging out, probably making out. Who knows? And then fucking brutally murder both of them and give the body to Mr. Summers to wish for that lung cancer thing to go away.
She absolutely murked whoever was riding passenger seat. The mistress theory was 100% correct. As for if Mr. Carter was killed by her or he was left alone in the woods, because if she kills the mistress and takes the body, technically she's not in the woods alone. So that leaves the element to where maybe something supernatural happened regarding Mr. Carter because he was in the woods by himself. And again, you can't find your way out if you don't water watch. But Mrs. Carter is somebody that frequently gets along with the children. Our protagonist talks about how he stops by her house all the time to talk to her. She is somebody that knows of the folklore of this area, and is a believer as well, or at least believing enough to go and make a deal with the body of the mistress in exchange for. That's why he says in the beginning, he says, I don't think she's waiting for anybody. She doesn't look like she is. She doesn't look like she's waiting for somebody to come home. She looks like she's just enjoying the autumn air.
Oh my god. I love it.
Yeah, it's a good story. I like it. It's definitely weird. Not what I was expecting. But it was good.
You took the most like sideways approach with wish granting I've seen, where I was very blatant in the idea of I wanted to do something with a shooting star.
Yeah.
Cameron took the approach of like monkey's paw. You took the approach of make a deal with a fucking demon and they will
You're
grant
getting
you a
what
wish.
you wish for. Yes, you're getting exactly what you wish for.
Yeah, he's
In
not
this
a
case,
bad
he's
demon.
gotten he's got a bike, he's gotten a trailer, and he also has the small inkling of a feeling that there will be toads to catch in autumn with his best friend, even though it's out of season.
Yep.
Yeah, it's good. I like it. It's I would have liked a
What's
little bit
more,
stakes, but it's good.
we see that the main character, the protagonist, we get this odd sense of like this protagonist is not exactly like all up there.
No,
Because
He's not disturbed
well,
by
maybe
it.
that's yeah.
This protagonist came up with the idea to
Which is good.
farm a dead body for more wishes.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
set up mirrors.
I wish he would have. It's really, really good. I wish if this was planned to be a bigger story, I'd be interested in it. Uh, but I wish we would have seen kind of that stuff earlier on. I know it happens pretty early, but
Yeah.
it's just so good when it happens because it's like, oh, the demon isn't the bad guy. We are the bad guy. Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Summers there to make the deal, but
Yeah.
you're the one that has to bring something to him.
Yeah, and
Like,
chop him
Mr.
apart.
Summer, we very clearly see in like the first time we get to see Mr. Summer, that Mr.
Mhm.
Summer will absolutely just leave you alone if you just say no and walk away.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Like he
he's
won't he
he's
won't
definitely
pursue and he won't aggressively try and make a deal. He's just there to offer it.
Yeah,
well, and
he's relaxing.
we hear what happens to George Palace, one of the older brothers of a kid that goes to school um, with our protagonist, and he says that he took Mr. Summers up on an offer to go look at something and follow the right path. But we've also
And
seen our
he was never
protagonist
seen
say that
again.
if yes, we've also seen our protagonist say that him and Sam have walked the right path by themselves before in the past because this new deals thing is just a new thing that Mr. Summers has started doing. But previously, if Mr. Summers hasn't shown up before, because he doesn't show up all the time, is they've walked the right path. So as to how, whenever Palace went with Mr. Summers um, to go look at something and never came again, and none of the kids can ever find the end of it, just adds to Mr. Summers' lore.
Yeah, I like it.
And
I want to
Miss
personally
Martin is
imagine
our
it's
spy
this weird.
people.
I want to add this personal like headcanon for Mr. Summers, which is that the boy George Palace, you said,
Mm-hmm.
um, who was like the first person we know who took up a deal or whatever, walked the right path with Mr. Summers, and Mr. Summers did in fact give the deal off, but whatever the deal was, it wasn't something that was noticeable to our protagonist or anyone else that was important to our protagonist.
Mm-hmm.
It was something just else that occurred that wasn't important to them, and in exchange Michael or Palace or whatever the fuck their name was just gone.
Yeah. And I want you to know, I purposefully, this isn't a story that necessarily works too great in an audio. It works definitely better while reading it because I try to throw in people's, I mean, this is a kid talking and they're not going to do much explanation when it comes to people. They're just going to say what comes to mind. So there is a lot of names thrown out with
Brendan,
taglines too to use. So they say
I'm
Mr.
not
Summers in the old house, Miss Carter sits on the porch, Miss Martin, she's a teacher, the Palaces work at a gas station. They own the corner store. It's all just loose terms.
Mm.
I like I want to express something to you.
Uh-huh.
I felt a genuine fear in my chest when you spoke as Mr. Summers the second time in the story.
He
Because
uses
you
the
had a
exact
particular
same dialogue.
voice.
He
You
says
had a
the
very
exact same
particular
thing.
voice you had a very particular voice you toned into with him. So I just want to say Mr. Summers had the horror vibe to him. But
Yeah,
that was
he's
really
definitely
good.
supposed to just be a man in a nice dress shirt and khakis and dress shoes. And when he shows up, he'll ask you, and he's kicking around playing in the stream, and then he'll sit down. And if you decline his offer, he'll lay down, and the stream will take him backwards down the right path until he's out of sight.
And so I absolutely just have to point out I clearly underdelivered this week, and I promise to do better next time. But also, what would you rate yourself, Brandon?
Yeah.
I gotta be really honest. I'm a big fan of this story. I really like it. I think it's not to sort of sit here and hype myself up, but there's something very homey about it, very local. Like it's nothing huge. There's no large events going on. At its core, it's about a boy who's making a delivery because he wants to keep catching toads with his friends. And so it's an innocence, it's a perverted innocence that he doesn't realize he's committing. Um, and like I feel like this is as a foundation for Anything that would go longer with this wouldn't be about this story ever again. Like, it wouldn't be about this character and the Toads. Like, it definitely feels like it's something. It's a glimpse into 2 days of someone's life, and you move on from it. And so I like how scary Mr. Summers is. I think he's genuinely creepy, and the lore around him is cool. I like how everything is kept ambiguous. Um, I gotta say, this is a favorite of mine for sure. For start to finish, I really like its delivery, and I think it's something that I would like to publish. Um, so I'm gonna go like it's it's not. I would make it longer, but with the constraints that we have, so I'd say probably an 8.5 for myself. And that's
Five.
not to hype. That's not to hype myself up, but I think I really do like this story. I know that it can be improved with editing, but I think for what it is, I talked to Cameron when I wrote this, but literally I had no idea what I was writing, and I said I'm just gonna start typing, and then I texted him 2 hours later, and I said I'm done. This was the day after we did the stories, um, so I'm proud of it. I really am. I like it. But yeah, I'd say probably 8.5. Like I know I can do better and I can edit into it more, but I'm a fan of it.
What do you think, Cody?
Personally, I'm gonna give you the same score I gave Cameron, which was a 9. And by reasoning for it, very close to your score for yourself. I think with the space you were given, you gave us a story that is concise. You gave us a story that tells us everything we need to know, tells us everything. We got every little detail we could ever hope to care about for this, while also alluding to the idea of, hey, here's Mr. Summers, and he's an incredibly creepy entity that could just appear anywhere. And additionally, you've definitely kicked up the idea of dialogue. These
Mm-hmm,
characters,
for sure.
you're introduced, and here's my one thing that I'm gonna point out that dropped it from me personally giving it like a 9.5 or even a 10. You introduce so many character names and concepts so
For
quickly
sure.
in such a short span of time that I mentioned it. I was having trouble keeping track of who's who.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had to look back and see, are we talking about the wood chopping woman or the woman who sits on the porch?
I
Whose
got you.
palace? And while every character had their own personality, at the same time they were so condensed down. It felt hard to keep track of everyone. So if anything, I would say honestly introduce less characters. Es- Specifically, if your story format's going to be 5 pages long, it's
Yeah,
not going to be a long story. If it's going to be longer, introduce as many characters as you fucking want. It doesn't matter. But if your story format's going to be 5 pages, don't introduce 10 characters with names that I have to keep track of.
I gotcha. And I will say, if you don't mind me saying, this isn't an excuse, but the reason that so many characters are introduced and named is, and also so fast and compact, even like the palaces not having too much to do with it, other than the sheer fact of the sun being mentioned at a later time and Miss Carter being referenced later, and stuff like that. This was written from a child's perspective, like an 11-year-old. And so I can understand how it can be too much for people, for readers especially, but it was written with the intent of a scattered brained 11-year-old who throws in hyper details for some things and wants to tell you, oh, that's Miss Martin. She was our third grade teacher, but that was like 4 years ago. Like they throw in stuff like that, but also they won't tell you more about Mr. Carter. Or, I mean, Mr. Summer. Like they just won't tell you more about Mr. Summer because kids are stupid and they tell you details that don't matter and leave out stuff that you really are trying to understand. So, yes, I understand. It can still be, it's an
That is
artistic
also
choice, but that doesn't make it justifiable. So, I
that is
understand.
also fair, and I fully understand it, but I still am going to give it that 9, where
No, I
I
gotcha.
think it was great. I think it was amazing, and that was its one detriment, was keeping track of stuff. But that's my rating.
Thank you.
I'll give
Normac.
your story a. So here's the thing. I think the
I was gonna
story
say
was really
4.
good. No. I think the story was really good. I liked everything. Like, obviously, it has that classic kind of like slow burn at the very beginning, and then as soon as like we get to the Mustang, it gets like really, not that it wasn't interesting, but interesting. It changes what the story is.
Mm-hmm.
So like that makes it really good. It's just I feel that there was not a lot of worry, and I know the character becomes kind of like the bad guy, kind of like without knowing it. He's losing innocence without even it being recognizable to him that he's losing it.
Desensitized.
Yeah, exactly. So that's like really, really clever and stuff. But there was just no real stake involved. And I thought when Mr. Summer would be added, and I'm glad you didn't do this, but I thought maybe he would have added some stake to it. So just to like make it more, and I know you probably couldn't even do it because you reached the max. So there's not much you can do. I think you did great for everything you could do and stuff. I'm just saying, if you were to add on stuff, that's kind of the stuff I would love to see is kind of like um, worse things happening, even to like the main
Yeah.
character, even if he doesn't know that it's bad that it's happening. Just adding those a little bit earlier and building it up to be a horrifying thing, because it is a horrifying thing by the end, to realize, oh, he's selling these parts and stuff. But I think you could have done that in the middle and then have something worse, like maybe he kills his friend or something and starts doing that, and then there's the whole town is like looking for him in the woods and stuff, or something. I don't know. I'm just
What I kind of want to counterpoint that personally. I think the lack of stakes made it better.
And I'll also say this: the story I typically I write, Cameron, typically how you wrote this week. Like I typically have large, grandiose events. So I want to say specifically for this, I wouldn't put this even in the horror genre at all. I think it's supposed to be a slice of life that is weird for the reader and uncomfortable for him, but not. This is written first person. It's not odd or it's peculiar for our protagonist, but it's not scary. It's gross. He throws up at one point. But I wanted for sure to keep it. I thought I toyed with the idea of, what if he's doing this and it's it escalates to illegal points and people are looking for him and stuff like that. But I think it's really supposed to be the story's intent is supposed to be there aren't stakes. This is another day, and the kid just adjusts to his environment, and he keeps going on. It's supposed to be weird for us.
Yeah, it's very obvious that what you were going for, Brandon, was this like cul-de-sac with its own rumors and myths feeling. Like we did not venture outside the realm of this cul-de-sac feeling.
If you were to keep it the same, but add the little parts you'd want to add, I would say even like go and make this kind of like a series of different random paranormal events happening, and this is like
and that's what I imagined. I imagined like having these characters' names established now. Mrs. Carter and the sort of debacle going on with her husband, having the palaces where the father is clearly missing his son. Miss Martin, who lives on the edge of the forest, which is a really weird thing to do because they say she lives an hour walk outside of the town, but she's the teacher of the town. So it's a very curious thing as to why she lives on the edge of the woods.
It's so close to the stream that you can pass by her and say hi to her while going back through the forest.
So it was definitely supposed to be sort of in that Gravity Falls sort of
I think
creep of the week, uncomfortable of the week.
Yeah, and it was once again, your story was great. I'm just saying, like, if you were to go back and do that, if you didn't want to add any like more stakes to this part of the story, I think splitting it up among other stories in like an intertwining
Definitely.
world would make it super super interesting. I
And
think
depending
this,
on future prompts,
yeah,
I plan on possibly bringing it back because I think the stakes of having an entity as um, Mr. Summer, who we know will potentially have the ability to make toads be common in autumn, which is a very obscure thing, but definitely a weird odd flex of power to change the entire ecosystem around them.
yeah,
Um, so I think him as like a wild card in terms of he's not being abused now by, of course, a child or an old woman, but definitely it's a play card that could be abused heavily. So in terms of stakes later, his existence already is a stake, is a high tension piece, not for our protagonist in this story, but as a background outlier to change reality as we know it for everybody else that resides here.
yeah. No, I like it.
But no, I completely understand where you're coming from when yeah, I see what you mean.
I got no gripes about the story itself. I'm just saying if you were to go back to it and add stuff, this is kind of the stuff I would be wanting to see from
Uh,
it. So other than that, I think the story was great. I think it was a 9. I just, I'm interested and
Also,
now invested into the world around it, and I wish there was more and more, variation to see what else
this
these kids get into.
these writing prompts are completely open as well. So
Yeah.
please feel like any ideas or anything like that that you feel like I fall short of or that you will think you can explore more, whether it be a character or a situation or a place or an environment, absolutely, absolutely feel free to incorporate it in whatever pieces of media you want. Like I've already got ideas as to how I want to um, incorporate some of the things that we've talked about in regards to you guys' stories.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
for sure. It's a good way to learn
in
is
in
to
my
see
in
what
my future
others
in
have
my
done.
future prompts,
Hmm.
like not like taking characters or situations or events and having them take place somewhere in the background or affect a greater world.
Oh, you're saying
Um,
to connect them all?
yeah, like
Oh, okay.
I already have
Okay.
stuff in mind for you guys' stories. Not saying you have to do it, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
I
mean,
just want you guys to know that you have full freedom to take some of that stuff if you ever want to.
okay,
Oh,
cool.
absolutely. And
Interesting.
just while we're on the topic of future stories, I'm now required to write a 10 out of 10 story next time
That's
for
right.
being the 1 7 out of 2 9s.
I'm sorry, Cody. I'm
It's
sorry,
not
man.
But
personal, Cody.
I went.
but also
I
but
also went with.
also I made this prompt. I think Brandon selected the prompt before this. Am I
Yes.
Yes,
right?
Yeah.
it's Cameron's. Yeah.
Cameron, what's our next prompt?
All right. The next prompt is going to be. Hold on. Let me see
I'm gonna
first.
take note of this.
Let's see when we're gonna have it do. We're
I'm
gonna
gonna
have it
type
do
it into the
this.
I'm gonna type it into the chat, and I'm gonna put
Okay.
the length and everything in the chat right here.
So
And the due date will be
October 30th.
November 4th.
Nope. October 30th.
Oh, October 30th.
We're gonna continue on.
Oh, we're not getting a lot of time here. Okay.
No, we're
10
gonna
days.
keep it.
All right.
Yeah, because we're gonna keep the 2 week schedule. Keep it going. So
Okay.
it'll be the 30th, and hopefully that day we can do it. But this is going to be the prompt. The prompt is a man of few words. It, yeah. So
And what is our limit? What is our page limit?
Oh shoot. Man, this is tough because I don't even know what
Because
story I want to write.
that's part of the challenge, Cameron. Is we got to come up with a page limit right now, and let's try and stick to it as best we can.
Let's keep it at 5 pages until we can all kind of like get a similar thing within that 5 page length. Because I'm having trouble with it. I feel like I should make up for it, and then I would also like to see y'all try to fit into that 5 pages too. I know you did, Cody. I'd like to see more pages, and then Brandon, I know you did. I also know you're
I was
struggling
just
with
like,
it. So to
yeah,
see,
I was
you're doing
like
great.
3 lines short
No, yeah,
of 5 pages.
you're doing fantastic. I just want to see if you can
And
do that again,
this
or
is
if
going to
it's
be a
just you
really
got lucky.
interesting one for me because as I've clearly shown the last 2 times,
Dialogue based.
I'm dialogue based, so
Mhm.
I'm very much so gonna go outside my comfort zone with whatever I write here.
Yep. Man, a few words. Oh no. I'm sorry. I didn't even realize it, Cody. I'm sorry. Dang, that's tough. Okay, well, take it how
So
you
we've
will.
got.
You make your own interpretation of the definition. So,
Keep in mind, guys, we have
I have an
six short stories
I know that's a
already,
lot.
and each one's averaging like, let's say, each prompt we do, let's say, is about 10 pages. We've got 20 pages right now of stories,
Yep, that's right.
and after this, we'll be up at like 30 pages of stories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Brandon, where did I take Brandon's phone?
Oh, yeah. Brandon left.
Brandon, did you leave by accident?
I'm stupid, sorry. Anyways, yeah,
Yeah,
we've
that's
got
a
like
lot.
over 20 pages of stories already.
And I
So
mean,
Yeah.
I don't know how you guys are thinking, but I have pretty big worlds within my stories. So
yeah,
the fact
this
that
was the
I'll have
first time
three,
I
it'll,
didn't do that.
it'll be
This was the
whoa
first
to
time
see.
I didn't make a big story.
The issue,
Um,
the thing I've noticed with your stories, Cameron,
Mhm.
they're always end of existence, end of humanity scenarios.
They're fun.
and
Both of your scenarios so far have been fucking tragedies.
I know. I'm sorry. It's just how I
You're
write.
good, dude.
It's the best way I can come up with ideas. Those ideas just seem so good to me, and everything else I just can't. It's just like me. I don't know how to do anything else. So
Dude,
maybe I'll get
I
better.
write like like almost Lovecraftian horror every single time I write short stories,
Yeah.
where like the world is collapsing around them and the protagonists are too small to understand it at all. And so specifically, I had to force myself to tell myself that this is not an end of the world scenario. In fact, it's not even an important scenario, and that's why this story is so small and self-contained.
Yeah.
So
And yours
definitely
are good.
encourage it. I'm not
I really
challenge
I
it.
really like that. I really like that, Brandon. I
Yeah,
like you said,
it's
you
good.
always do these like Lovecraftian horrors. I loved this one, and I want to see that again. And Cameron, I urge you,
Challenge it.
make a
Challenge it.
make a story that goes against your natural grain of I want to show a world in collapse.
Damn. It's just so fun because then I can make the world whatever I want. But okay, that'll be my special little challenges. No end of the world, kind of like end of humanity shenanigans with this next one, which is gonna be weird.
Yeah, well, because what you learn here, you'll be able to apply to those end of world scenarios, and it'll make them even better.
Yeah, I'll have to figure this out. Okay.
You
Well,
got 10 days.
did we do last time who had the best story or no? I don't remember.
We did not.
Okay, we don't have to.
No.
Good. We don't have to.
Yeah, be between you two. That's not even a debate.
All right, so it's Cody this week.
He's nice.
All right. Well, thank you all for sharing. That was cool.
Mhm.
Is there anything else you guys want to talk about?
Thank you.
Is it cool if I make like
I
movie posters for each one of the stories? That way I have like something visual.
oh, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. I tried thinking of ideas, but I didn't get any further than a kid on a bike.
I do
The Mustang
personally
in the
have
woods
something.
is good.
Yeah.
I have something I need to ask Brandon, but I want to do that outside of the realm of recording. So
Oh, okay.
tell me when